Hi, I'm Nickia Larsen, the Children and Family Ministries Director here at First United Methodist Church in Corpus Christi, Texas. And I have the honor and privilege to share with you our weekly devotional from the church. Our family was very big into 4-H, and I won't go on that spiel, but I do believe every child and family needs to be in 4-H. But our family was really active in 4-H, and every weekend, most every weekend, we would be loading up the stock trailer and going to another show. I mean, we would show all over the Midwest. And I was thinking about shows, every single show that we went to with our livestock. And what would happen is my grandpa he was the cornerstone. He was the one who taught and held everything together and had all the answers and really taught us how to love the life of 4-H and the animals and the livestock and all of that good stuff. And so when we would go to a show, he would always bring like my steer up to the ring when it was time for me to show. And he would hang on to my steer and he'd say, okay, quickly comb him out, make sure he's looking good so you can go in and present your steer to the judge. And right as it was time for me to always go into the ring, he handed me over my steer. He put my comb in the back pocket. For any 4-Hers there, you know what I'm talking about. And if you don't, well, sorry. But I would then go into the ring. Now, when you go into the ring with livestock, you want to keep your eye on the judge. You want to be able to showcase your steer, your livestock, sheep, hogs, whatever it is. You want to be able to show them the best, right? But you need to keep your eye on the judge because it is loud, it is busy, there's a lot of chaos going, and you can kind of get lost in the shuffle because the judge might change things up. He may say, I want you to go one circle around the ring, and then I want you to set your steers up this direction or this direction, and he changes it. So it's important that you keep an eye on the judge. So my grandpa, as I would walk in, he'd hand me my steer, put my comb in my back pocket, and he'd say, okay, there's the judge, keep your eye on the judge. And so I would go in and I would be leading my steer and I'm keeping my eye on the judge. And as soon as we get to the place where we have to set up our steer with a show stick, and we want to make sure, again, it's packaged just really nice and we're showcasing the best quality of our steer, I always would quickly scan to see if I could find my grandpa. Because I needed to seek him and find him so I had that reassurance that I was okay. And that my steer was set up, because sometimes when you're setting it up, you may not quite see what it really looks like. And so I always would scan to see my grandpa. And never once did I go to a show where my grandpa was not hanging on the fence. And I'd look over to him and he'd always give me this little nod. And it sometimes was just that like, good. And I knew, good, we were solid. We're rocking and rolling. I've set my steer up the best it could. Sometimes he would give me this little signal and I'd have to defer, like, what is he trying to say? But maybe I had stretched my steer out too much and he needed me to bring it back in. And so he would guide me in it. But I always had to find my grandpa. I couldn't do that alone without him there. I needed his reassurance. I needed that hope that everything was okay and that it was good. And so I was thinking, as I have been studying in Jeremiah lately, and I was in chapter 29 of Jeremiah, and specifically verse 13, where it says, when you search for me, you will find me. If you seek me with all your heart, I will let you find me, says the Lord. And you know, I had to think back then on my childhood about being in the show ring and needing to make that connection with my grandpa and know that I was okay and that he was there. Now, when you're looking in Jeremiah 29, you know, it's important to have some of the context behind that. The context is this is a promise that he's going to bring back the people back into the land. Like that was the ultimate promise of God. But Jeremiah wrote this letter to the exiles who were in Babylon, because at this time, Babylon had already invaded Judah and Jerusalem. There was still a big chunk of people left in Jerusalem and Judah, but they were soon going to be captured and they were going to be sent to exile. So the idea of that all of their hope, all of these people are now being exiled and held captive. And they had to have felt this moment of being lost, right? They are now in what's the thick of what could be the absolute worst. And so Jeremiah, he writes to the elders, to the people, and he says, make yourselves comfortable. Make yourselves a home and be good citizens in Babylon. Now, I don't know about you, but that to me goes against every human nature. You're telling me that I am in the worst of moments right now, and yet I am to make myself comfortable and be good. But see, God has this plan. And he wants them to multiply. He wants them to do good in whatever situation and circumstances that they are in. God is calling for them to seek comfort and peace among division. And friends, we could argue that we're in those moments now. There's just this unsettledness, this weariness, this divisiveness. And yet we have this opportunity to search and to seek for Jesus in the midst of all of this. Just as I, as a child, looked for my grandpa in a crowd, and in times of that uncertainty, and in that time of needing that reassurance of hope and promise and comfort, we can do the same now. See, God, he did not hide from his people when they sought him in exile. They refused to suffer under the trials that God could not be found. Their seeking and God's revealing were part of their future and hope. The same future and hope applies today. We just need to search and seek because God is here and he's right here in the midst of all of our lives and what we're going to. But sometimes we just need to search and to seek for him because he's there.